Hello there, I am the Geordie Gaymer and welcome to my channel. So for the first few videos, we are going to be looking at one of my absolute all-time favourite series and I can't wait. Let's go. So I love the original Tomb Raider games. They're honestly one of my absolute all-time favourite series. When I was young, I was always more of a sort of Mario, Sonic, colourful 2D platformers kind of guy. That's what I grew up on. I wasn't really interested when it was all these sort of big, burly men with guns shooting things. It just wasn't interesting to me. I always preferred the platformers. But Tomb Raider just did something really, really different. We met Lara Croft, who was just so cool, like a female lead who shot with guns and who went after artifacts and just did what she wanted, had witty one-liners, really British, really intelligent, really fit. She could do all sorts, and I just thought she was amazing. And I thought, well, if Lara Croft can get into guns and shooting, maybe so can I in these games. And I just loved them. And the first one I played was Tomb Raider 2, and from there I've sort of played through all of them. I think, you know, I love the original 5. Well, maybe not Chronicles. Chronicles is a bit dodgy, lazy, underdeveloped, buggy, poor, just bad. So for this video, we're going to be talking about the original 1996 Tomb Raider. This, it still is an absolutely fantastic game. When I was playing through it again to sort of choose my top 5 levels, I couldn't get over how much it's still so playable. And I mean, I know the graphics aren't great, but at the time, they were unbelievable. And you can still play it, it's not that bad. You've heard it all before about how it revolutionised gaming, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, you've heard all that. So let's go straight in and look at my top 5 levels. Here we go. So at number 5 we have the Tomb of Koalat. One of the things I really liked about the original Tomb Raider game is how much actual tomb raiding there is in it. All the tombs have a very, very different feel. So the Tomb of Koalat feels really, really deep, lost underground. In this section of the game you're in Rome and you've been to the Colosseum. Then you go into a level called the Cistern where you're making the water levels rise up and down and essentially going down again. So this one feels really deep underground, sort of lost far away from civilization. And that was another thing the original Tomb Raider games just did so well. This feeling of atmosphere, and it's just you and Lara in these areas, you know, really helped ramp up the tension. And there's a real ominous feeling as you approach the final temple where you actually need to go in and get your first piece of the artifact you're searching for. And just as you're about to go in, a centaur breaks out from one of the statues. And moments of surprise like this were just brilliant, and plenty of them in the original Tomb Raider game. And considering, you know, the game engine that the developers were using, it's so impressive that they managed to achieve these magical moments. And this was a real magical moment when that centaur broke out. Really scary as well, especially as a kid in the 90s. It's just one of those iconic video gaming moments that really sticks for me. At number 4 we have the Tomb of Koalat. This is the first tomb that you come across. It's the 4th level in, and it's really different to the levels that have come before it. I really like the imagery on all the switches and the tiles. Really mysterious looking. Really makes you feel you're actually in, you know, a tomb from a forgotten time. The premise of the level is you need to open 3 gates to get to the first piece of the ski on, the first artifact you need to collect. And the layout is 3 unique puzzles, each with a switch at the end to open one of the gates. All the puzzles are totally different in style and what happens in it. And again, we haven't come across anything like this gameplay-wise up to this point, where a level's laid out in that way. So it's really interesting at the time. The main enemy in the level is the Velociraptor. These actually come through from the previous level into the tomb after you at various points throughout the level. This was really scary. The Velociraptors don't look right against the sort of background of the tomb, and there's just something really jarring about it. And, you know, there's some really closed corridors, and the Velociraptors suddenly appear from behind them. It's really, really, you know, scary stuff. Really cool, though. When you finally get into the room with the piece of Skion in it, there's a mummy character stood in the corner, and its head follows you wherever you go. It just watches you. Doesn't attack you, just watches you. And it's really, really unnerving. I just find that elements like this, little details like that, just perfect, make for a perfect game. Once you grab the piece of the Skion, the temple begins to fall down. You know, the roof starts to fall. You have to leg it out. Very, very dramatic. Very, very dramatic soundtrack playing at this point. I mean, don't even get me started on the soundtrack for these games. Nathan McCree's score is for me, the best video score I've ever heard. I could make endless videos analysing each track individually. I won't, because I don't think people would want to watch that. Well, maybe they would. But anyway, really dramatic music. We'll come back to that later. You exit out where someone's shooting at you, and it's your first human enemy. So this is really exciting as well. You have to jump into a waterfall, climb out, and start shooting back at him. This was really exciting. We hadn't seen a human enemy up to this point. And that's why Tomb of Koalat had to be on the list. So at number 3, we have St. Francis Folly. This is the first level in the Greece section of the game. It's a real change in the look of it. It's a lot more sort of Roman looking, architecture-wise, pillars and elements like that. The enemies are suddenly much harder. You've got lions and apes. I think they're lions and apes, or they're monkeys and tigers. I'm not sure. I really need to start fact-checking this stuff. That moment when you first see this enormous structure that you have to traverse up and down is just a moment of absolute awe and beauty. When you first come into that room and see it, and then, you know, one of Nathan McCree, what part of his soundtrack starts to play, and it really does, it just feels huge, you know. Again, managing to create these moments of such, as I say, awe and beauty, it's amazing. You know, in the original games, you just don't get that in the new titles. Now, I'm not going to start making a video where I start slagging off the new titles. So anyway, you have to go up and down this structure, and you have to go into 4 different rooms, which are all Greek gods. So you've got Atlas, Damocles, Poseidon, and Thor. Each one has a puzzle in it related to that god. Again, really, really clever, really unique. Damocles, you go in, and once you've picked up the key you need from Damocles, swords will start falling down. This was terrifying. With Poseidon, obviously you had to do a lot of swimming and around to get the key of Poseidon. With Thor, there was a giant hammer and there was thunder involved. And with Atlas, you essentially had what was to represent the world, a giant boulder rolling down at you. It was great. It was really, really clever. Going up and down the big structure in the middle as well was quite challenging. Like I've said with the previous levels, we hadn't seen anything like that up to this point. It's just such a good level, and it's one everyone still today remembers from the game. At number 2, we have The Lost Valley. Now, you knew this was coming somewhere. This is, you know, the iconic level from the original Tomb Raider. If you ask anyone who's played the game, even no matter how long ago it was, they will remember this level. So of course it was going to be on the list, and of course it was going to be quite high up. And this is a point where the game really gets going. I think up till then, the 2 levels before it, they're fine, but you are just learning the mechanics of the game, you know, learning how to shoot, learning how to do some basic puzzling elements. They're very short levels. This is where the game really gets going. And it's at this point the game starts to delve into something much more otherworldly. So far, in terms of enemies, you've had bats, wolves, the occasional bear, and now we have dinosaurs. You're really delving into the non-realism over the realism, and this is what I absolutely loved about the Tomb Raider series, mixing realism with sort of fantasy, sci-fi and non-realism. As I mentioned at the start, having grown up with colourful platform games, I had no interest in games that were trying to replicate realism and replicate real life. But Tomb Raider was doing this with fantasy and sci-fi elements, and this was brilliant. It's something that I could really invest in. Obviously, if we're talking about dinosaurs, we have to talk about the moment you walk out into the valley and a Tyrannosaurus Rex comes around the corner. Now, I know every video's talked about this moment to death. You know, we all know how amazing it was, but we can't talk about Tomb Raider, we can't talk about the Lost Valley without talking about how amazing and how scary it was when you walked out, first to some velociraptors, that was already scary enough, and then a T-Rex just appears around the corner. I mean, it's not that difficult to fight, and you can't just hide while you fight it, but it was still really, really scary. And you know, it was a moment everyone was talking about. This level has a much more open world feel about it. You have to collect 3 cogs to put into a machine at the end, and they're scattered all out the level. An open feel idea of where you can you can go anywhere, and the level does come back in later games, but this is the first time I've really seen it. I love all the greens in the valley, you know, all the shrubbery. I love the waterfall effects. And then there's one moment where you have to go across the bridge right on the top going over the valley and jump over it, and you really get this sense of the landscape opening up and, you know, it being a real panoramic. You know, it's a real world here. At the end, when you have to insert the cogs to stop the waterfall, so you can go underneath the waterfall into the Tomb of Koalat. This was a lovely element. Again, really mysterious, really mystical and magical. What the Tomb Raider games, well, what the original Tomb Raider games did so well. Again, I really don't want to make this a video where I slag off the new Tomb Raider games. Oh, you know what? It's gonna happen sooner or later in my videos, guys. I'm gonna have to, like, talk about why I don't like the new Tomb Raider games. So let's just do it. So here we go. At number 1, we have Atlantis. Of course we do. The game goes into full-blown sort of sci-fi and fantasy realms at this point. When you walk into the first room and there's these birthing eggs along the wall, it's just so creepy and horrid. And then, you know, the Atlantean creatures that come out are really, really, really difficult and nasty and scary. The textures and walls of this level, this sort of pulsating flesh is the only way I can think to describe it. It's just really, really off-putting and gross and really atmospheric, you know, really, really strange. Fantastic. The level mechanic is you're climbing up this pyramid, going up and up and up, higher and higher, and it is relentless, this level. You know, every puzzle in it's really, really difficult, really hard platforming, fighting these enemies in really enclosed spaces. There's lava everywhere. Can't not talk about the moment with Laura's sort of Atlantean doppelganger, where there's this really strange sort of fleshy version of Laura, which you have to kill by dropping it into a pit. Again, that was one of those moments everyone talked about, one of those lovely little sort of strange things that the developers put in, but that everyone remembers. This level it might be my favourite level in any Tomb Raider game. It's just so iconic. It's really, you know, it's real horror. It's real horror gaming, you know, as I mentioned, with all the fleshy walls and the horrible enemies, and again that sense of awe and sort of magnificence as you're getting higher and higher and higher up the pyramid. I just loved it. It's the level that really, really sticks out for me when I think about Tomb Raider 1, and when I think about the series overall. Really, it's the level I really, really enjoyed. So there we have it, my top 5 levels from the original Tomb Raider game. Thank you so much for watching. Please feel free to give the video a big thumbs up, and feel free to subscribe to my channel. Also in the comments, please tell me your top 5 levels from the original Tomb Raider game. I'd really like to see them and see how much you agree or disagree. and I will see you next time. Thank you so much for watching.